Austin Knudsen is the Montana Attorney General. Brenna Bird is the Iowa Attorney General. Thank you both for being with us. So, Brenna, what was your takeaway? What did you learn at the roundtable event that you didn't know and that could help your state and others?
Well, it was just great to see the vice president and president's big commitment to fighting fraud and to making sure the American taxpayer is not getting ripped off. We had a great meeting, some good ideas were exchanged, and we're going to partner with the federal government to root out the fraud and get the money back for the American taxpayer.
How? What did you learn that you can use?
Well, a couple of things. They are setting up partnerships between our offices, state prosecutors around the country, and also U.S. Attorney's Office, the federal Department of Justice, to work together to investigate, to stop the fraud before it happens. They're looking at some best practices there, some ways that the Biden administration really opened the doors by just taking people at their word when they said they were entitled to certain government benefits and then didn't check. And so some really great ideas there for how we can dig into it and hold them accountable.
Yeah, Austin, to that point, you have to plug the leak before you start bailing out the water. Obviously, we know that there is a huge opportunity to make sure that we can put in new best practices. But looking at states, you're looking at places like California, New York, Illinois, by some estimates down anywhere from 50 to 90% in their recovery of Medicare and Medicaid fraud over the last decade. Isn't the first thing we have to do is actually have attorney generals with the will to act and with the will to address the fraud when we find it?
Well, that's absolutely right. And I think that goes to the point of why none of the Democrat AGs showed up. Look, I know they say they got some short notice, but we didn't get much more notice either. And you'll notice that all the Republicans made the effort to come out here and have this conversation with the White House because this is an important issue. This is an 80-20 issue. It doesn't really matter if you're Democrat or Republican. The taxpayers care about this. And so the fact that they didn't show up, I think, speaks volumes for how seriously some of these blue states are taking this issue in states like you just said. I think that just speaks volumes.
Yeah, you do notice, Brenna, that a number of red states, when the fraud started really being, coming out in the public in a big way, a lot of red states investigated their own state and found the fraud and called it out. What is the area that you think that they're signaling they're going to focus on first? Where is the biggest fraud occurring, or where is it easiest to just stop that fraud as quickly as possible?
Well, one of the things that we heard from the vice president and his team is they're going to use the tools that we have to stop it before it gets started. So pausing certain new providers where there's been some fraud happening. For example, there was a lot of fraud in the hospice area that they highlighted. Fake hospice organizations that say they're caring for people but don't actually take care of anybody who really needs their help. Things like that, shutting off that spigot. And then making sure that rather than just taking someone's word for how many people live at their home and what they should be entitled to based on their assets and income, actually going and checking that and making sure that folks are entitled to them. Because when people get benefits or it goes out to the fraudsters and the scammers, that's taking money away from people who need that help.
You know, Austin, you look at the numbers. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. In the state of Minnesota alone, where the Attorney General, by the way, did not attend yesterday's meeting, you're looking at close to $250 billion in fraud as these numbers continue to add up. It's one thing to say a little fraud here, a little fraud there, but a nation with GDP of 20 to 25, $30 trillion. I mean, it is feasible that we're going to start seeing recoveries or at least allegations of fraud with the T after it, not a B.
Oh, I think that's right, especially when you start digging further into Minnesota. But look, I think California, I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. That's a state with a huge gross domestic product. It's a state with a huge population, and we're starting to see just staggering amounts of systemic fraud in that state. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we're going to see numbers like you're saying. But look, this comes back to the vice president taking this seriously. Democrat AGs are looking the other way. They're trying to be complicit here. You have to ask yourself, are they trying to buy votes? Are they trying to buy support? I think those are valid questions. But kudos to Vice President Vance and the Trump administration for taking this so seriously, being aggressive, wanting to partner with state AGs, I think it's important that we get good U.S. attorneys to cooperate with our investigations and our prosecutions, and we can bring an end to this stuff.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.